G'day folks and welcome to Wellywood Wargaming. My name is Damon and in this video the community has voted and I have come up with a list of all of the gang leaders in Necromunda. There are 19 of them. If you haven't seen my previous video on this, I did do a list of a sort of tier list combined with a community vote on the best juves in the game of Necromunda. What we're going to be doing here, though, is taking a look at every single leader, so I think you'll probably find this one a bit more exciting. There are a few surprises in here, and of course, I'll just point out, this is the community that's voted on this, so there are some surprise, sort of maybe skewed results in here that I don't necessarily agree with, but that's the beauty of Necromunda. It's very hard to quantify some of these things in a game with so much depth. I'm always a little bit uncomfortable when it comes to tier listing stuff with a game like Necromunda because it's not all very straightforward. It really does depend on the meta in your groups, how you play Necromunda, what house rules you're using, and things like that as well. But I thought that's why it was so good to get the community's input on this so that I can get a good idea of what people think is the best to worst gang leader in Necromunda. So without further ado, let's get into it. We're going to go from worst to best here, or at least least popular to most popular in this, and I think those two things do combine fairly well and make a lot of sense by the end of it, and I think you can probably guess already who's at the top of this. So, you know, answer on a postcard down below, do comment before the end of this video. It'd be interesting to see if you can get maybe the top three most popular, or at least bestest gang leaders in this game. Now, there are a couple of little omissions here. I'll just point out, I haven't included any mouse drain stuff because the mouse drain gene stealer gang, if you're going to run it like that, you may choose your leader from one of two champions. They are champions, not leaders, so I'm not going to include them in this listing. I'll include them in the champion listing. It's a little bit complicated, but I think just leaving them out is good. Another thing to point out here is, yes, I know that you can use any fighter profile as an Outcast gang leader. We're not going to count that here either. We're just going to go off the base sort of profiles that you can use for your Outcast generic leaders and your Venator Hunt leaders as well. So 19 are here. These are all leaders. They have the leader sort of keyword, I suppose, and that's what we're going off for the sake of this list. So I'm going to start with the least popular and the only one in this entire list that's actually got 0 votes from the community. And I'm really surprised by this. It makes me feel a little bit the same way about the squat digger in the last video for the Juves. The digger was far better than anyone gave it credit for, I thought, but that's the beauty of Necromunda. There are lots of angles and spin on these things. So the weakest and least popular leader in the whole of Necromunda, and I think there are factors that come into play here, is the Bad Zone Enforcer Captain, which I'm really surprised about. Bad Zone Enforcers were included in a White Dwarf issue. They're an official gang, but they aren't actually in a gang book. So I think that's partly why this hasn't actually received any votes whatsoever. 0 votes here, with the top getting 60 or 70 votes. So to put that in perspective, people just don't like Bad Zone Enforcers, or they're just not playing them. But the Bad Zone Enforcer Captain, in my opinion, is better than your regular Palanite Captain, and here's why. So very, very similar to your Palanite Enforcer Captain, except there are a few little changes and adaptations that you've got to take into account when you consider the Bad Zone Enforcers. Personally, I do prefer Bad Zone Enforcers to your regular Palanite Enforcers for a number of reasons. They're just a bit more cool from a sort of narrative and fluffy perspective, and you can really do some good modeling opportunities with these guys as well, as I have with my entire Beastman gang. The Bad Zone Enforcer's Captain is as follows. We have a 125 credit leader, so fairly expensive, but he does come with some stuff. He's got a movement of 5, a weapon skill 3+, and a ballistic skill 4+, which frankly isn't good enough for any leader. We've got strength and toughness 3, 2 wounds, initiative 4 up, which again is not very good for a leader, 2 attacks, a leadership 4+, which is fantastic, cool 6+, willpower 5+, and intelligence 6+. So good mental stats there, but a fairly expensive leader so far at 125 credits. For war gear, we get the armored undersuit and magnicals, so note the omission of the other stuff that you get with the flak armor and the stub gun on the regular Palanite Captain. It is factored into the cost here though, because I believe the Palanite Captain is more expensive and has a stub gun and armor. This guy doesn't, so you do have to buy him some armor and weapons. In terms of skill axis here, it is exactly the same. We get Brawn on a primary, Ferocity on a secondary, Leadership on a secondary, which is the only leader I think that gets Leadership on a secondary, which is a bit strange. We get Shooting on a primary though, which is excellent, and Palanite Drill, which is the skills that you only get for Palanite Enforcers. And there's probably 2 or 3 really good ones in there. Got Your 6 and Threat Response are particularly good ones that I would usually take on this guy. But Shooting's probably the one we're going to go for with this leader, I would say. So where this guy differs from your regular Palanite Captain is that he gets actually more access to armor and war gear and interesting weapons as well. For basic weapons, we have the auto gun, which is new to Bad Zone Enforcers. You can't get this on regular ones, but you're probably not going to take an auto gun on a Captain anyway. We get the Enforcer bolt gun, the Enforcer shotgun, and the Subjugation pattern grenade launcher with frag and stun grenades. So both options there for the Subjugator and Enforcer sort of loadouts there. In terms of pistols, we get Auto Pistol, which is new, Plasma Pistol, which is excellent. Access to a Plasma Pistol is always very nice, and that is, again, unique to the Bad Zone Enforcer Captain. We get Stub Guns with Dum Dum rounds, and here's where it gets fun. Special weapons, the Concussion Carbine, the Sniper Rifle are both available for your Bad Zone Enforcer leader, but you also get the addition of a web gun. Now, web guns are not available for Palanite Enforcers, but they certainly are for Bad Zone Enforcers, and I think that's really cool and thematic as well. But giving this guy a web gun makes him very scary, seeing as you have primary shooting, maybe hip shooting with a web gun. Absolutely disgusting. I don't condone that sort of behavior, but I'm just pointing out already, when we go to compare this to the Palanite Captain, you'll see that this guy is pretty much better, mainly because he just gets the access to the web gun here. We also get heavy weapons as well, which is worth noting because I believe the Palanite Captain doesn't get access to any of these heavy weapons. We get the Heavy Concussion Ram, which I like. It's a good weapon. We get the SLHG Pattern Assault Sledgehammer, and we also get a Heavy Stubber there as well, which is pretty cool. Nice to add something with a bit of grit in there too. In terms of close combat weapons, we get a Power Knife, which is new, I believe, Power Maul, Shock Baton, Shock Stave, and Assault Shield as well. So you can have the Assault Shield on this guy and make him a sort of proto-subjugator. In terms of grenade, we've got less options actually on the grenades, more for the regular Palanite Captain. We've got frag, flash, smoke, and stun grenades. No crack grenades in there either. But for armor here, here's where it gets interesting too. We've got flak, hardened layered flak, and layered flak armor, and mesh armor as another option too. A bit of an outside bet on that one. And something that you don't get on your regular Palanite Captain here is a conversion field or a refractor field. So if you really want to go to town on making this guy very safe, you can add field armor to it as well. But he comes with the armored undersuit, so you could just give him mesh and an armored undersuit, and he's suddenly pretty good, and not for much cost either. Weapon accessories here, we get infrasight, telescopic sight, and you get access to the hacked Cybermastiff, which, to point out, is no way near as good as the hard case Cybermastiff you get on your regular Enforcers. We also get bio boosters, bio scanners, photo goggles, photo lumens, respirator, stim slug stash. The rules for the Bad Zone Enforcers are awesome, and I seriously suggest that you check them out if you haven't already. They've been out for a long time now. I've played them in a full campaign, and I think they're much more fun and more interesting than your regular Palanites, but that's just my 2 cents on it. I do really enjoy them. And yeah, like I said, I'm very, very surprised that the community's given no votes to this guy, because I do think, he is better than the regular Palanite Captain just because of the access to all that extra stuff. You don't have to come with the stub gun and the flak armor, so you're able to give him better armor options. And yes, the web gun with hip shooting, it's certainly an option. You could even do the web gun with, like, Got Your 6 or something disgusting like that as well. The options are there. It's not the best leader in the game, which is why it's down near the bottom anyway, and it probably would be too. But I do think that 0 votes for this guy is a bit cruel, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments about this guy, though. So in at number 18, or second least popular, or least best, depending on how you look at it, is the Chaos Helot Demagog. This guy is the leader for the Chaos Helot gang. If you're going to play the Chaos Helot gang, this guy has a very specific role, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But the Cult Demagogue is certainly down there as one of the worst in terms of his stats and the access to the equipment that he gets. However, he is an integral part to the Helot gang if you're going to play Helots. If you're going to play Helots, though, don't expect to win loads of games, because they're just really not that good. You're better off going with a corrupted house gang most of the time. So the Chaos Cult Demagog is 100 credits, so he's a little bit cheaper than some of the other leaders. He's got a movement of 5, weapon skill and ballistic skill 3+, strength, toughness 3, wounds 2, initiative 3+, and attacks 2. So already the stat line is quite a bit better than the Palanite Enforcer or the Bad Zone Enforcer Captain that we just looked at a minute ago. Leadership 6+, cool 5+, willpower 6+, and intelligence 7+. So not the smartest for the leaders, that's for sure. Primary skills, he gets access to Cunning, Ferocity, and Leadership with Savant and Combat as secondaries. Pretty good skill set access there. Cunning is excellent, Ferocity is excellent, and Leadership as well. He does have 2 unique special rules here, and they are as follows. The first one is Devotion. So while this fighter is standing, all other fighters from their gang who are within 9 inches and line of sight of them can use this fighter's cool and willpower, which is 5+ and 6+ respectively. Pretty good when they make any checks. 9 inches line of sight. You got to be close to do it, but most of the time you're going to want this guy protected anyway, as he is, something that you're going to want to protect in your Chaos Helot gang. But the touch of chaos has a lasting effect on a cultist's mind, rendering them immune to the horrors that would normally drive others mad. The cult demagogue can never become subject to the insane condition. Just never. Really nice. There is a Vanar skill, I believe, that's quite similar to this, but this one's really good. And it just makes him safe from attacking his own guys or just going off and freaking out and breaking and stuff like that. So it's nice to have there. In terms of equipment, absolutely nothing exciting, I'm afraid. We have auto guns, reclaimed auto guns, las guns, and shotguns for basic. For close combat weapons, we get axes, chain glaives, chain swords, fighting knife, flail, maul, sword, two-handed axe, two-handed hammer. Nothing particularly good in there. Perhaps a chain glaive or a chain sword if you really want to go that route. For pistols, we have the auto pistol, reclaimed auto pistol, hand flamer, which is nice to have, las pistol, and stub gun with dum-dums. Special weapons is the flamer, grenade launcher, or long rifle. And for grenades, we have blasting charges, demolition charges, frag grenades, incendiary charges, and crack grenades. Hazard suit, flak armor, mesh armor. For the armor options there, again, pretty standard. And personal equipment, we get 2 unique things. We've got, the Chaos Familiar, which is an excellent pet, probably one of the best pets in the game, which means you can pretty much deny a shot when you're getting shot at. You've also got the Cult Icon as well, which is another one that's good to have, the Cult Icon, but it is quite expensive for what it does. We've also got filter plugs, infrasight, monosight, photo goggles, and the respirator there as well. So the overview of the Demagogue really is I see him as a bit of an overseer caddy, using him as perhaps naked or with very little equipment and just overseering a heavy stubber or a flamer or a chaos spawn, heaven forbid, something like that anyway. And that's it really, all I would use him for. Helot cults are a sort of haughty gang, but they just don't do it as well as, say, Cordor. They're not a top tier gang, so I think if you're going to play them, you are going to want to do things like that to make them at least sort of slightly competitive if you want to play like that. But again, that's my 2 cents on the Cult Demagogue. Let's get into number 17 now. All right, so in at number 17 with 19 votes, we're getting a few more votes in. It swings from 0 to 19 here already, and we've only gone up 2 places. But the Ashw Nomad Kartragi Chieftain is the 3rd least popular leader in Necromunda, down to your community votes here. So he's not amazing, I'll be honest. He's 120 credits. He's movement 6, which is nice. He's a bit faster than most of the other leaders. Weapon skill 3+, ballistic skill 4+, so not particularly good at shooting. Strength, toughness 3, wounds 2, initiative 3+, and attacks 2. We've got a leadership 5+, which is excellent. Cool 5+, willpower 6+, and intelligence 6+. So really nice mental stats there as well. In terms of the skill access here, we get Cunning, Leadership, and Savant as primary, which is quite nice to have. We've got secondaries of Combat, Agility, and Wasteland skills as well. Note the Wasteland skills only really come as a primary on the champions in Ashw Nomad's gangs. I've got to say though, the leader, Ashw Nomads look fantastic. The leader, when you do them with the chain lance and the claw, it's not even viable, but it looks cool. So, like all the rest of the Nomads, this guy comes with an Ash Cloak and Sky Mantle built into his cost for 120 credits, so it's not too bad, really. He's a decent leader in terms of his stats, good mental stats, all right initiative, and good movement with movement 6 there. I think that's the real highlight, is the movement on these guys. They are nice and fast. In terms of the equipment here, we get the Blast Carbine, Blast Rifle, and Scavenged Auto Gun. This is all pretty much the same as the stuff you're going to get for the rest of your Nomads. We get the Blast Pistol, Scavenged Stub Gun, and Web Pistol, which is a nice addition there. Special rules, we get the Long Rifle, Venom Caster, which is an incredibly expensive weapon, but can be really nasty, and a Web Gun, which is just better for the cost. We've got the Charge Caster and the Heavy Blaster, so you can go down the heavy route for this guy as well. Chain Lance, Long Blade, Mono Hook, and Stalking Knife. I love all the close combat options for Nomads. I wouldn't mind doing a close combat orientated Nomad list at some point, actually, just to be silly with it. In terms of armor, we get Flak Armor, Mesh Armor, Conversion Field, Displacer Field, and Refractor Field. So interesting that you get all the field armor choices there. They are expensive, but they're pretty good. Bio Booster, Drop Rig, Filter Plugs, Grav Chute, Medicae Kit, Photo Goggles, Respirator, Rocket Pack, and Servo Harness partial there as well, with the Infrasight, Monosight, Suspensors, and Telescopic Sight built in there as well. So in summary, the Nomad Chieftain is distinctly average. He's certainly not very good. He's better than the rest of your Nomads, but Nomads just aren't that great. Now, if you do go to the Apocrypha Necromunda stuff, there is one of the Apocrypha Necromundas that has a Sungar Warrior Spirit thing in it, which is a new mechanic to use with Nomads, which does make them a little bit more fun and exciting. Doesn't make them particularly great, but they're still a bit more fun with it. These are kind of like unique skills that you can get as a one-off per game. You can only use them once per game, almost like an extra tactics card in a way. And I think there are 6 of them. And they're all themed on like fire or ash or different elements of the wastes and stuff. Really cool, a nice addition to the game as well. But so you can take that into account when you're using this guy, because it does make him a little bit better. Personally, with a Nomad leader, depending on the type of campaign that you're playing, if you're playing in the Underhive with Nomads, then you're probably at a bit of a disadvantage here. These guys are designed to be played in the Ash Waste and Ash Waste campaigns. So you could go with a sort of middle route by giving him close combat weapons and shooty weapons, maybe even a pistol and a chain lance, something like that. I don't know. But he's not bad, but he's not great. He's just kind of distinctly average, really. And that is the Nomad leader. Okay, and at number 16 now we have the Genestealer Cult Adept. There are 2 types of leaders for Genestealer Cults, and there's the Alpha and the Adept. We're talking about the Adept here. The Adept is the Psyker. The Alpha is, well, the Alpha, I suppose, but we're going to talk about him in a bit. The Cult Adept here, with how many votes did we get for this guy? 21 votes. I'm actually currently playing Genestealer Cult with an Adept leader in my current campaign, and I really like him for a number of reasons, but he is a Psyker, and I'm playing him as a Psyker, and he's pretty good so far. Many people, including me, believe that Genestealer Cult do deserve a reboot at some point. There are a couple of sort of things about the gang list that just don't make a lot of sense, namely the champions only having 1 wound, and of course all of your fighters pretty much being movement 4 as well. Just doesn't make a lot of sense, so they do need a bit of a reboot at some time. However, the way that I'm playing them in my current campaign is quite interesting. I'm not taking champions at all because they're just trash and just a waste of credits. So instead I'm taking aberrants. So I've got a bunch of aberrants, a bunch of gangers, a specialist, and an adept as a leader doing psychic stuff. So in terms of the stats and stuff, it's 120 credits for the Cult Adept, which is not too cheap, not too expensive. We've got movement 4, pretty slow, weapon skill 4 and ballistic skill 4, so not very good at fighting or shooting, very average here. Strength toughness 3, 2 wounds, initiative 3+, and 2 attacks. The mental stats are where he shines though. We've got a leadership of 3+, which is probably the best in the game here. A cool of 5+, a willpower of 5+, and an intelligence of 4+. So he's got amazing mental stats, and if you consider that willpower for psychic abilities, then he gets really fun as well. All of the rules around Psyker are built into this guy as well, so if he rolls a double 1 or a double 6 when he's casting one of these weird powers, For the skill access otherwise though, we get Cunning as a primary, Leadership as a primary, and Cult Weird Powers as a primary. Now this is up for debate. It really does depend on your arbitrator as well. Personally, I allow all of the weird powers available for these guys, same as Delac, same for all the psychers in the game so far, I think. If you're just sticking to the cult weird powers, this guy is nowhere near as good as he could be. However, in the current campaign that I'm using, I'm just using the telepathy powers. I'm not using the really, really powerful ones. I'm using some of the others like mind control and whatnot, and they're just really fun to use. In terms of weapons, I personally have only gone with a las pistol and some mesh armor. Nothing really other than that, because this guy's whole point is just walking around disrupting the hell out of other gangs, and so far he's doing quite well in my campaign doing that. He's very annoying. But he gets an auto gun, las gun, or shotgun if you really want to give him some weapons. All of the close combat weapons that you get available for the rest of your Genestealer cult, including the heavy rock drill, heavy rock saw, and heavy rock cutter if you really want to go there. Pistols, auto pistol, las pistol, needle pistol, and hand flamer. Needle pistol's quite a nice little addition there. We've also got special weapons with long lasers, web guns, flamers and grenade launchers, mining lasers, seismic cannons and heavy stubbers for the heavy weapons there as well. In terms of war gear, plenty of grenades, hazard suits, flak armor, mesh armor, bio booster, cult icon, which is a nice addition there if you really want it. Filter plugs, photo goggles, respirator, and of course the psychic familiar for these guys as well, which has so far pretty much kept my leader alive in this campaign. So the psychic familiar for 25 credits is just an absolute must-have. I'd almost include that in his cost because you're just going to auto-take it, to be honest. It's just so good. So yeah. In summary, I think the Cult Adept is better than people give it credit for. Yes, he's slow. His stats aren't particularly good. But if you do, as an arbitrator, allow someone or yourself to use this guy with the sort of actual expanded weird powers table, he's quite a lot better because you can actually take some decent ones in there instead of just the crap ones you get as the Cult Weird Powers. So anyway, that's the Cult Adept. Moving on now. All right, in at number 15 with 22 votes, only one more than the Cult Adept here is the Cordor Wordkeeper. I think it's a little bit far down, but he isn't particularly great. I think I've just got a soft spot for Cordor, to be honest. But the Cordor Wordkeeper, not to be confused with the Redemptor Priest. We're going to talk about him a little bit later because he got more votes. This guy's 100 credits. He's movement 5. Weapon skill 3+, ballistic skill 4+, strength, toughness 3, wounds 2, initiative 4+, attacks 2, leadership 4+, cool 6+, willpower 5+, and intelligence 6+. So pretty good, not amazing, certainly not great at shooting, and his stats are pretty average for a leader, not very good. In terms of his special rules here, he gets all of the normal sort of leader special rules that you get here with the group activation, tools of the trade and whatnot, but he also gets the extra addition of Pious. A devout member of House Cordor, this fighter adheres closely to the teachings of the Redemption whilst dutifully denying the path of the fanatic. In addition, if this fighter rolls a natural +1 on the cool check when making a rally test, they may immediately re-roll that cool check. This is the rule that you always forget about if you're playing Cordor. You will always forget this rule. It's just one of those things, so just write it down in massive fluorescent marker on your gang list and you won't forget it. Never really comes up, it's pretty situational, but when it does, it's nice to have that reroll. You also get the path we follow. So this guy, he's your leader, so you've got to choose which path, which articles of faith you're going to use when you buy this guy as well. In terms of skill access here, we get access to brawn as a primary, combat as a primary, and leadership as a primary, with secondary of ferocity, shooting, and piety. So no piety skills for this guy, unfortunately. They're pretty good. I like the piety skills. In terms of equipment, though, we get pretty much the same stuff that you can get for the rest of your Cordor. Nothing amazing. We get the pole arms, both of them, the blunderbuss and the autogun polearm, with Emperor's Wrath rounds in here as well. Reclaimed autoguns, sawn-offs, and solid shots for the sawn-offs as well. So those are all your basic weapons. Hand flamer, reclaimed auto pistol, and stub gun. Combi autogun, flamer, and long rifle. We've also got the heavy crossbow, heavy flamer, and heavy stubber in there as well. Axes, chain glaives, cleavers, fighting knives, flails, great swords, which I absolutely love, and heavy clubs, mauls, polearms, two-handed axes, and two-handed hammers for the close combat options there as well. A bunch of grenades, in fact quite a few of them: blasting, choke, frag, incendiary, crack, and smoke. We've got flak armor, a gutterforged cloak, a scrap shield, and mesh armor. I love the idea of this guy with a scrap shield and a great sword. Shout out to Selby, who actually did that on his leader. He just looked so cool. Bomb delivery rats, cult icon, drop rig, filter plugs, photo goggles, respirator, skin blade, and a strip kit there for the personal equipment. He gets a monocyte, and for the exotic beasts and pets, you can get sheen birds. 0 to 2 sheen birds on these guys, which is not amazing. Sheen birds certainly aren't your psychic familiar that you're going to get on the Adept. So in summary, the Cordor Wordkeeper is, he's the anchor of your entire Cordor gang, really. Most of the time, though, I think if I'm playing Cordor, I'm going to take a Redemptor Priest over this guy, and I'll explain why a bit later. I just think they're a bit better. So he's a similar kind of guy to the Helot Cult Demagog that I mentioned earlier. I just think this guy's a bit better at doing it. So most of the time, I'm going to take a naked Cordor Wordkeeper. By naked, I don't mean actually naked in his birthday suit. I mean naked as in no equipment, really. And I'm probably going to give him Overseer as his skill and have a heavy crossbow or something equally nasty parked next to him so I can best take advantage of that. And that, really is how you're going to play a Horde leader like this. Same as your Helot leader. I just think they're very, very similar. This guy has slightly better stats and better access to equipment, but they're very, very similar, these two. You know, he generates Articles of Faith and can use Articles of Faith as well, which is a nice bonus. Cordor basically just do it better than Chaos Helots in every way, pretty much. And that is the Cordor Wordkeeper. Okay, in at number 14, and something that we touched on earlier is the Palanite Captain here. This guy is, with 22 votes as opposed to 0 votes for the Bad Zone Captain, just not as good as the Bad Zone Captain, in my eyes anyway. You know, do tell me down below if you think I'm wrong with that, because I'd like to know what your thoughts are. Why do you think the Palanite Captain is better than the Bad Zone Captain? Because it's clearly you guys, the community, that voted for this. With 22 votes to 0, the Palanite Captain is definitely more favourite here. But again, I do think it's down to the fact that not many people out there have actually played the Bad Zone Enforcer list. I don't think it's a particularly popular list, partly because it was published in a White Dwarf magazine, and not everybody has those rules. Anyway, the Palanite Captain's stats are exactly the same as the Bad Zone Captain's stats, but he costs a little bit more at 140 credits. The reason for that is baked into his cost. He does get the flak armor and the stub gun that were missing from the Bad Zone Captain. So otherwise, we are exactly the same. The stats are completely the same, and the cost would be the same if you bought flak armor and a stub gun for the Bad Zone Enforcer Captain. In terms of skill access, again, exactly the same as the Bad Zone Captain here, with primary of Brawn, Shooting, and Palanite Drill. I wouldn't take any Brawn skills on this guy, but Palanite Drill and Shooting, both excellent skill sets to choose from there. No web gun though. In terms of equipment, we do get quite a bit less in terms of options for the full Palanite Captain. We get the Enforcer Bolt Gun and Enforcer Shotgun, both good options. We get Shock Baton and Shock Stave, so less close combat options here. Pistols, we only get the Auto Pistol and Stub Gun. Note the omission of the Plasma Pistol that I highlighted there earlier. Special weapons, we get the Concussion Carbine and Sniper Rifle. No web gun. And we also get more grenade options here with Choke, Frag, Flash, Smoke, and Stun. So the other thing that's slightly different to the Bad Zone Enforcer leader here, or captain should I say, is the fact that you can choose this guy to either be a subjugator or a regular Palanite. That is the sort of regular Palanite stuff. If you make him a subjugator leader, it is an extra 10 credits to do so, and he gets a different offering on his equipment access. So he then gets the subjugation pattern grenade launcher as a basic weapon. We get the same close combat weapons, except note the addition of the assault shield, which is pretty good, and we get the heavy concussion ram and assault ram sledgehammer as well. The same for all the personal equipment otherwise, and for the armor here we get the hardened layered flak for the subjugator option only, which is 30 credits too. So you can make him a big beefy guy with better armor and a grenade launcher or a heavy weapon or something, or even the riot shield and shock stave or something, which I think is a really nice combination on this leader. Or you can, yeah, just make him a Palanite Enforcer boss with a bolt gun or something, and then he's just kind of the same as the rest of your gang in a lot of ways. I do like the Subjugator option on the Captain. I do think it's quite a nice option, particularly the close combat one, because he's just a real beefy tank of a guy. If you give him Got Your 6 or Threat Response or something like that, then he becomes pretty annoying. But overall, I think the Palanite Captain is, you know, certainly not one of the best leaders in the game. I think the fact that he has very mediocre stats with only a ballistic skill of 4+ is a bit of a shame for someone who is probably going to do a bit of shooting at some point, which is why I tend to lean into the close combat sort of profile, or at least maybe give him something that has a template like the Enforcer Shotgun. Pretty effective weapon there, especially when you combine it with those shooting skills as well. So not hugely dissimilar to the Bad Zone Captain, but less options overall. For me, makes the Palanite or the Subjugator Captain less good than the Bad Zone Captain. But again, I'd like to know what you think down below, so do comment on this one. Am I missing something here with the Palanite Enforcers? Of course, you do get access to the Hardcase Mastiffs here as well, which are a fantastic pet, one of the best pets in the game. That's worth mentioning too. And that is the Palanite Captain. I'm a bit surprised by this one. It is the Vanar Prime with only 23 votes. It is what it is. The community voted. Don't shoot me here. The community voted for this, so it is what it is. But yeah, the Vanar Prime is as follows. We have 130 credits, so he's quite expensive, but you know, he's pretty good really. The stats are as follows. Movement 4, slow like most Vanar. Weapon skill 4+, not very good like most Vanar. Ballistic skill 2+, so that's the icing on the cake there. Ballistic skill 2+, and access to lots of very, very scary shooty weapons. Strength toughness 3, wounds 2, initiative 5, which is crap. Attacks 2, leadership 4+, cool 5+, willpower 4+, and intelligence 4+. So excellent mental stats across the board there as well. He does come baked in with the armored body glove, which is the same as the rest of the Vanar, giving you +1 to your save. So if you stack that with mesh armor, suddenly you have a 4+ save, which is very good. He comes with all the normal leader rules, so we won't go into those too much with gang hierarchy, tools of the trade, group activation, etc. For skill access here, we get leadership, savant, and shooting. Shooting is the one that you're going to be using most of the time on this guy. We get tech, cunning, and agility as secondaries here as well. In terms of the equipment list, though, we get lots of nice, shiny Vanar stuff. In fact, the list is so long here, I'm probably not going to go through it all, but las guns, las carbines, suppression lasers, probably don't take any of those. Pistols, we've got las pistols, hand flamers, plasma pistols, and combi pistols. We've also got the flamer, grav gun, melter gun, plasma gun, and rad gun. So lots of special weapon choices in there, all of them pretty good. We've then got heavy weapons here, and there is a Forge World model for this, the mighty las cannon. If you really want to go there, you can get the las cannon. You could also get a multi-melter, a plasma cannon, and a rad cannon. All 4 of those weapons I think are awesome. I actually really like the rad cannon. Not many people do, but I do think it's great with its template. But yeah, really, the las cannon is probably the best there, but the multi-melter is disgusting as well, especially if you get that suspenser on it. It's just horrific. You just take anything out with it. Histra Pattern Energy Shield is available for this guy, as well as the Power Knife, Servo Claw, Shock Baton, and Shock Stave. A bunch of grenades, Carapace Armor, Light, flak and mesh armor there as well, and all of the conversion field armor too, which is also very nice to have. Important to note here, when I mentioned that multi-melter or las cannon, you can actually get the suspenser on your house list as well for 60 credits. So if you really want to do it, if you really want to go there, you're going to need the suspenser to do that as well. And you also get access to the Cyberachnid, which is one of the nastiest pets in the game. It has basically a digi web pistol and is really, really freaking annoying. Honestly, the Vanar Prime, there's quite a big jump here, as you can see, from the last one we talked about with the, the Palanite Captain to the Vanar Prime. This is quite a big jump in quality. So I think really we're in a separate tier at this point. We're going up a whole tier. I think the leaders that we've talked about so far are definitely sort of tier 3. Now we're into the tier 2 or even tier 1. But I do kind of agree with the Vanar Prime being in this position. He's not up there as one of the best leaders in the game. His stats aren't amazing. Yes, he gets access to awesome skills and awesome stuff, but other leaders can do some pretty scary stuff as well, and we're going to talk about that soon. The other thing it's worth mentioning as well is you can get Cyber Technica on this guy to make him more scary, but generally the Cyber Technica that's available for your leader is at quite a hefty cost. You don't get that discount that you get on your champions and stuff, but yeah, 130 credits and your choice of all of the best toys and weapons in the game is pretty damn good, but I think cost versus effectiveness, you could probably get a more effective leader in some of the other gangs for a fraction of the cost. And yeah, that's just my 2 cents on the Vanar Prime. Again, though, I'm a little bit biased as Vanar are not my favourite gang, and I do take the piss out of them all the time and call them Dutch bastards. So it is what it is. But yeah, the Vanar Prime only getting 23 votes there is quite interesting. I know many of you out there who play Vanar are going to be screaming and shouting at me right now saying, Damon, this is completely wrong. He deserves a higher position, but he is in number 13 out of 19. That is what it is. This is interesting. So the same amount of votes here, and I've put him, in position 12 as opposed to 13 is the Cult Alpha. I mean, most people will probably think the Vanar Prime is better than the Cult Alpha, but I like the Cult Alpha. He's just really fun and really fluffy, and I just think he's more interesting than the Vanar leader, really. But 145 credits. This is the Cult Alpha, so the second option in your Gene Stealer cult list, and he's pretty good. He's pretty good. So he's movement 5, weapon skill 3+, ballistic skill 3+. So already better than your Prime. I shouldn't compare them because they're very different. Strength 4, though, and toughness 3, wounds 2, initiative 3+, and attacks 2. Mental stats, leadership 3+, cool 5+, willpower 5+, and intelligence 4+. So amazing mental stats there as well. Comes baked in with the hazard suit, meaning he can't be set on fire. It's only a 6-up save though. And he also comes with the early generation hybrid special rule where he gets an extra arm. So this guy has 3 arms, may even have 3 legs, but this guy's got 3 arms, and that gives you +1 attack and rending, I believe, on it as well, which is pretty nice. Also means that you can have a 4th weapon and may attack with 3 weapons with the sidearm and or melee. I know people are taking the piss out of me for saying that, but yeah, melee. Is that right? I think so. Traits rather than the usual 2. For skill access here, we get combat as a primary, leadership as a primary, and shooting as a primary. So shooting is the one I'm going to be highlighting here. And the reason for that is we're going to be taking Gunfighter, I think it is, where you can shoot your pistols and stuff. In terms of your equipment here, we get the auto gun, las gun, shotgun, basically all the same stuff that you get for the rest of your Gene Stealers, all of the heavy rock cutters, heavy rock saws, shock whips, shock staves and whatnot. Some really good close combat and shooting weapons here. Web guns, mining lasers, seismic cannons, heavy stubbers, all sorts. We also get lots of grenades in here too. We get the Cult Icon and the Psychic Familiar too, so you can have the Psychic Familiar on this guy to make him even harder to remove, but honestly, the build that I go for with this guy, and this is down to Arbitrator's discretion as well, is giving this guy 3 auto pistols and just going with lots and lots of auto pistols. I had a guy in one of my campaigns, shout out to Al, I believe, who had 3 auto pistols on this guy with a bunch of different ammo types, and you know, you could use all 3 of them in close combat as well. So you're dishing out a possible 9 shots in close combat. It's pretty cool. I really like it. And again, it's down to the Arbitrator's discretion there, but I just think shooting 3 pistols using the Gene Stealer Kelomorph, which is a fantastic model, by the way. If you don't like that Kelomorph model, you're mental. But yeah, having 3 auto pistols, it's just fun. And again, you can buy some pretty interesting rounds for your auto pistols as well to make them more effective. I just like it. It's fun. And yeah, that's why he's there. So in at number 11 and in the middle of the pack here, which is kind of where I expected it to be, is another House Gang leader, and that is the Delak, Master of Shadow. Now, the Master of Shadow is a funny one. Now, I've played Delak myself, and I've played against Delak a lot, and I usually see this guy being utilized as very much a very balanced fighter. I think he's probably the most balanced gang leader in all, sort of overall really, but he can be used for several different things. Of course, he's pretty crucial to your Delak sort of strategy generally. Delak are not a beginner gang. They do require a little bit of a chess brain to play them properly, especially if you're utilizing your Psychoterica properly. But yeah, the Delak Master of Shadow is as follows. We have a 100 credit fighter here. So he's not the most expensive, he's not the cheapest. We have a movement 5, weapon skill and ballistic skill 3+, strength toughness 3, wounds 2, initiative a 3+, and attacks 2. We have leadership 6+, cool 6+, willpower 5+, and intelligence 6+ here as well. In terms of your primary access to skills here, we get cunning, agility, and leadership here as well, with secondaries of savant, shooting, and obfuscation. So those are your skill access there. Pretty good. I like the addition of agility thrown in there as well. Just gives him something extra. We also have the ability to upgrade this guy to a Psyker using the Psychoteric Whispers special rule. So for plus 30 credits when you buy a Delak leader, you can make them a Psyker. Now, here's where it gets interesting, of course. This does depend a lot on your arbitrator. Personally, as an arbitrator, I'm absolutely fine with people using all of the weird powers for any weird in the game, generally, as long as they don't totally milk it with some of the most broken telepathy powers and whatnot. But I think if you're using Psychoterica, this guy's great. If you're using the full weird powers list, he's also great as well. So yeah, you can make him into a Psyker. He's a nice balanced fighter. We've got decent stats across the board there. He's certainly not amazing, but he's not the worst either. He's no slouch, that's for sure. And access to good skills like agility and cunning do make him pretty good there. The other thing we have is access to some pretty good weapons and equipment. We get an auto gun, las gun, or shotgun, and throwing knives as basic weapons. Pistols, we get the auto pistol, the grav pistol, hand flamer, las pistol, plasma pistol, stub gun, and of course the web pistol, which is very nice. Special weapons, we get a flamer, grav gun, long rifle, melter gun, plasma gun, and web gun. Obviously the plasma gun and web gun are probably the strongest choices there, but a long rifle is pretty good on this guy if you want to keep him out of harm's way. He's pretty good at shooting too. Close combat weapons, we get the digi laser, shock stave, stiletto knife, and web gauntlet. I love a web gauntlet. They're really, really good. 35 credits, pretty good weapon. We also get access to a bunch of grenades: choke, flash, scare, smoke, and stun grenades, light carapace armor, flak armor, and mesh armor, armored undersuit, bio scanner, camellia line cloak, which is pretty cool, filter plugs, grapnel launcher, photo goggles, respirator, skin blade, and web solvent, with all of the usual weapon accessories there as well: gun shrouds, infrasights, monocytes, suspensors, and cephalopod specters for your pet access there. One of the weakest pets, 100 credit for a fairly useless pet. They look cool. The Forge World minis are really quite sort of cute. They're like miniature Greeblies from the Matrix, but that's what you get. And again, it's a balanced sort of list of equipment stuff there, and for a balanced fighter. Most of the time, like I said, I've never really seen this guy geared towards close combat particularly, but I've never really seen him particularly geared towards shooting either, but that's usually more the way that he goes, down the slightly more shooty route. But generally speaking, I think most people are going to want to make this guy into a psyker, utilize the full use of those psychoteric powers, and also the weird powers if indeed your arbitrator lets you. So not a huge amount to really talk about with the Delac leader. He is really solid. He's not, you know, he's not party material. You're not going to be like, yeah, this guy's amazing on the field, but he is solid and one of the sort of mid-tier gang leaders in the game. I don't think he's super powerful. I don't think he's weak in any way either. He's just a nice, good, solid all-rounder with access to decent skills and decent equipment. Again, though, I'd like to know how you run your Delac leaders, so do comment down below. Let me know if I'm missing something on this guy, because, yeah, I'd really like to know. In at number 10 with 27 votes is something I thought would be a little bit more popular, a little bit higher up, is the Ashw Gang Queen. Now, I know there are tons of Ashw players out there. Everybody loves Ashw, and the Gang Queen is definitely one of the better leaders in the game, which is why she's already in the sort of top tier here, I suppose, when it comes to gang leaders. 125 credits, so, you know, moderately expensive, and the stats are as follows. We've got a movement 5, weapon skill and ballistic skill 3+, strength toughness 3, wounds 2, initiative 2+, which is a highlight there, and attacks 3. So really good initiative and 3 attacks, which is just fantastic. The only leader so far in this that's got more than 2 attacks. We've got leadership 5+, cool 5+, willpower 6+, and intelligence 7+. So pretty good mental stats, the intelligence being fairly average there though. In terms of the skill access on the Ashw Gang Queen, we get agility, we get primary of combat, and we get primary of leadership as well, with secondary being cunning, ferocity, and finesse, which is only available as a primary on your Death Maidens, I believe. Some nice equipment and war gear options here. We get the basic weapon options of an auto gun, bolt gun, las gun, sawn off, shotgun, and throwing knives. Pistols, we get the bolt needle pistol combi, the auto pistol, las pistol, plasma pistol, needle pistol, hand flamer, and stub gun. Special weapons, we get combi bolter flamer, combi bolter needler, which is modeled on the plastic miniature, the combi bolter melter gun, and bolter plasma gun there as well. A lot of people don't like combi weapons. I think they're pretty great, but they are very expensive for what they do. We've got flamers, grenade launchers, needle rifles, nightshade chem throwers, which can be fantastic if used well, melter guns, and plasma guns as well there for 100 credits. Heavy weapons, we get a heavy stubber or a plasma cannon. It's not worth noting that both of those weapons are available on your old school N95 miniatures as well, so you can go down that route with them too. Close combat weapon, we get the chain axe, which is, I think, my favorite close combat weapon overall in the game for its cost. For 30 credits, it's a fantastic weapon. We've got chain swords, fighting knives, power hammers, power swords, servo claws, shock whips, again modeled on the plastic leader there, and stiletto knife and stiletto sword. Light carapace armor, flak armor, mesh armor, among lots of personal equipment here, notably the chem synth, which is nice to add to those toxin weapons, as well as respirators, photo goggles, and the usual sort of stuff. Gun shrouds, hotshot las packs, las projectors, and suspensors. And you also get the exotic beast here, 0 to 2 fear cats, or fur cats, depending on how you're going to pronounce that. They're pretty good. They're one of the better sort of pets, I think, but still at 120 credits, they're very expensive for what they do. The Ashw Gang Queen, again, I think most people go down the route of a fairly balanced fighter here. I've seen a lot of people just using the out-of-the-box loadout, which is the shock whip and bolter needler combi weapon. It's not the most effective weapon loadout, but it does look cool. The bolter needler is very expensive for what it does. You're better off either just going for a bolt gun or a needle rifle, in my opinion. The shock whip, although it does give you that really nice versatile range with the 3 attacks, I think you could probably do better with a chain chain axe personally. So using maybe the Athera model from Forge World, I think that could make a nice stand-in Escher Gang Queen, as the plasma pistol and chain axe is probably the optimal combination that I would go for. But I think a long-range weapon in there as well would be nice, just slung over the back, perhaps a bolt gun or a plasma gun if you really want to do that. Some nice skill axes as well. Agility, we've got Spring Up being probably one of the best skills in there for this girl. And yeah, 3 attacks really I think is the highlight there. So of course, your Death Maidens are the absolute cream of the crop when it comes to close combat fighters in an Escher list, but the Escher Queen is absolutely no slouch either. She's not quite as effective as the Death Maiden is, but pretty good backup. And I think, you know, with that 3 attacks being there, you need to utilize the fact that she's got 3 attacks base, because it's just really nice to have. So I think a close combat focus generally with a little bit of additional firepower, because she can also shoot pretty well too, especially with that addition of Spring Up there as well. So all in all, I think the Escher Gang Queen is definitely one of the better leaders in the game, because she just has raw stats are really good. Like I said, the attacks 3, initiative 2 up are really highlights there. Mental stats, certainly nothing to shout about, but she's overall a little bit better than the Delac Master of Shadow, I think. Overall, slightly better options just in general, and a nice fairly balanced fighter with a little bit more emphasis on close combat. Let me know how you run your Escher Gang Queens. Of course, you've got Chem Alchemy to think about here too, so you can do some really nasty combinations with some of that later on in the campaign. But you know, bare bones, the Escher Gang Queen is pretty damn good, and I think, yeah, is about in the right position here at number 10 out of 19. So mid-table here, could perhaps be a little bit higher, but it's interesting to see who we've got left to talk about now. The next one we have in at number 9 is the Squat Chartermaster. This guy is a bit of a beast and has the same amount of votes as the Escher Queen with 27 here. In at number 9 though, I think the Chartermaster goes slightly ahead of the Escher Queen all in all. We have an 115 credit fighter here. He's movement 4, weapon skill and ballistic skill 3+, strength of 3 and toughness 4. So bit more tough than your average fighter. Also, a real highlight here, and something I love to have on leaders, particularly Orlock Road Captains as well, is a wounds of 3. Now, wounds are crucial in this game, especially if you combine this with the toughness of 4. So we have a particularly long-lasting and hard-to-take-down fighter here with toughness 4 and wounds 3. Initiative 5+, though, squats are not very agile, so that's reflected here in the stats. We have 2 attacks and the mental stats of a leadership 5+, cooler 5+, willpower 5+, and intelligence 6+. So very, very good mental stats. Not quite as good as the Gene Stealer leaders, but very, very solid all in all. No unique special rules for the Chartermaster, but the skill access is as follows. We get Brawn as a primary, leadership as a primary, and shooting as a primary there as well. I think shooting is probably the thing you're going to be taking. Brawn, not particularly good, and leadership, I just don't think you're going to really be using most of those skills in your squat lists. Combat as a secondary, Savant as a secondary, and Wisdom of the Ancients, the unique squat skill tree there as a secondary as well. In terms of the equipment, this is what we love about squats, is the unique weapon access that they get to a ton of very high-powered, rapid-fire, high-damage-dealing, short to mid-range weapons that just do a lot of work. So we've got the Ironhead Auto Gun, the Ironhead Bolt Gun, which is absolutely overkill. I won't hear anything other. We've got the Ironhead Auto Pistol, Ironhead Bolt Pistol, Ironhead Hand Flamer, Ironhead Stub Gun, and Stone Burner there as well. We've also got the Ironhead Flamer and Ironhead Melter Gun as special weapons. Heavy weapons, we've got the Ironhead Heavy Flamer, the Ironhead Heavy Stubber, and a Mining Laser. Close combat, we've got the Circular Stone Saw, Fighting Knife, Gem Extractor, Ironhead Arc Welder, Power Axe, Power Fist, Power Hammer, and Power Pick. And we've also got Blasting Charges, Frag, Crack, Smoke, Light or Heavy Carapace Armor, Flak or Mesh, all of the field armor options, and loads of personal equipment as well, from bio boosters, drop rigs, filter plugs, grav chutes, Medicaid kits, photo goggles, photo lumens, respirators, and all of the weapons sights there as well, including suspensors. So yeah, I mean, again, the stats here are leaning into a particularly hardy and tough fighter, and I think the rules team have done a really good job of portraying exactly what a Chartermaster would be like in the actual game, with that toughness 4 and wounds 3. Very hard to remove. Some great skill access with shooting and whatnot as well, and I'm not sure what I'd load this guy out with. You could just go down the sort of all-rounder route with perhaps a Ironhead Bolt Gun or something horrific like that. The Ironhead Bolt Gun, it's 95 credits, but it's like rapid fire 2, strength 4, -1 AP damage 2. It's disgusting. with a good ballistic skill as well, and shooting skills. So you could give him some nasty shooting skills to add to that too. Or you could go crazy and give him some close combat weapons and make him a bit of a powerhouse. But just bear in mind that movement of 4 isn't going to get you around the board particularly quickly unless you're utilizing tactics cards and whatnot as well. Personally, I think a balanced approach to most leaders is preferable. And the squat leader, I think, with a close combat weapon, perhaps a power pack weapon and a good special weapon or basic weapon is where it's at. I probably wouldn't go with a heavy weapon as it just gets too expensive. And in terms of armor, it's tempting to take the carapace armor because it looks cool, but it's just so expensive and you can do better with an undersuit and flak or mesh or something like that. So I do think the Ironhead Squat Prospector Chartermaster is one of the better gang leaders in the game, purely for the raw stats there, the toughness 4 and the wounds 3 being a real highlight there. I'd like to know how you run your Squat Chartermasters. Of course, in the time of this video coming out, we are going to be receiving a new Squat Prospector book. Whether or not they're going to change any of the stats for these guys, I highly doubt it. He might have some different mechanics around it. I think they're going to throw in a unique squat mechanic by the sounds of it. It sounds like the article on the Warhammer community is going to have something for squats that gives them a little bit more flavor. But I think they're not going to change the cost and how this guy operates overall. So it'd be interesting to see how he fits into the new version of the gang. But generally speaking, he's a really solid contender and right up there in this list so far. Okay, this is interesting. So Cordor, they have 2 leaders. The first one was the Wordkeeper that was way down the list at number 15. But in at number 8 here, we have the Redemptor Priest. So it seems like everybody generally prefers the Redemptionist leader option to the Cordor leader option. I think I'm one of those people too. I love piety skills as well, so a little bit of extra stuff that we've got here, but there are some real big differences between the Redemptor Priest and the Wordkeeper. 29 votes to 22 votes. It's not a huge amount, but it is what it is. We've got 100 credits for the Redemptor Priest. He's movement 5, weapon skill 3+, and ballistic skill 4+. Strength 3, toughness 3, wounds 2, initiative 4, and attacks 2. So the same stats as the Wordkeeper so far. However, his mental stats are slightly different. We have a leadership of 5+, cool of 6+, willpower 4+, and intelligence 7+. So not as smart, but slightly better with the willpower and stuff. He gets the same special rules as you get with your general leaders, with all that stuff, but we've got Fanatical as well, which is unique to the Redemptionists here. A zealous follower of Redemptionist teachings, this fighter embodies the extreme beliefs of their cult, embracing the path of the fanatic. In addition, if this fighter rolls a natural double 1 on their cool check when making a nerve test, they may immediately re-roll the cool check. I've said it before, this is the rule that you're generally going to forget, but it's just nice to have. Again, though, when you take this guy, you're going to have to choose your path of faith, your articles of faith, which ones you actually use, because that's going to dictate what you use for your gang for the duration of a campaign. In terms of skill access here for primaries, we get combat, leadership, and piety. Piety's got some really good skills in there. As secondary, we've got shooting, ferocity, and brawn as well. So I'm probably going to be taking the piety skills in this case on my Redemptionist leader. In terms of the equipment, Redemptionists generally are better equipped than Cordor. They aren't, you're just riff-raff. They are slightly more elite generally, and that's reflected here in the equipment list for the Redemptor Priest. We get auto guns, not reclaimed ones. We've got shotguns, exterminators, which are really great. They're like a one-shot hand flamer, fantastic, and they're only 15 credits as well. Take as many as you can in a Redemptionist gang because they're just revolting. We get auto pistols, hand flamers, and stub guns. We've got the Indomitable Fire Pike, which I think is a fantastic weapon, even for its 140 credit cost. Grenade launchers, heavy flamers, which you're never going to take because they are absolute garbage, but we get some better close combat weapons here as well with the chain axe that can be fitted with an exterminator. 2 chain axes with 2 exterminators is absolutely the way to go. Chainsword, eviscerator, and fighting knife. The eviscerator is great as well, but I probably wouldn't go for it on the Redemptor Priest generally. We've then got blasting charges, choke, frag, incendiary, crack, and smoke. Light carapace, flak armor, the incombustible hauberk, and mesh armor. We get field armor here as well with a refractor field or a hexagrammatic fetish, which is interesting too. Book of the Redemption and a cult icon are unique to this guy too, as well as the pyromantic mantle and a bunch of other sort of mediocre personal equipment there too. Weapon accessories, we get mono and infocytes, and we also get access to the exotic beast that's unique to Redemptionists only, and that is the Cherub Servitor. You can have 0 to 3 of these guys, and I believe they're 80 credits Oh no, sorry, 55 credits, so quite a bit cheaper than I thought. They're pretty good though, not as good as a Psychic Familiar, but certainly good for being able to just shun attacks at certain points in the game. We also get access to Gun Skulls, Medi Skulls, and Sensor Skulls, which is really cool and gives you that Ministorum Ecclesiarchy vibe that you see on so many 40k miniatures. So it seems overall that the Redemptor Priest is a pretty popular choice here, especially with the amount of votes that it's got, 29 votes here, and in position 8. I would probably say that, you know, the other house gang leaders are probably better than the Redemptor Priest, but I do think the piety skills are particularly interesting. You've got Unshakable Conviction in there, which I like giving a leader, just makes him a bit harder to kill. You can't coup de grace him, and he can flock together, as well as there's another one there that just gives you more attacks emphasis as well. There's a few really good ones in there, but I do think the Redemptor Priest is a particularly fun leader to use, and you've got some really nice weapon options there as well. He's just annoying. You're not going to use this guy as an Overseer caddy so much like you would with your Cordor Wordkeeper. I think this guy is definitely more of an all-rounder, close combat / flamey template bastard. So he's certainly pretty mean up close. He's not got the best stats in the game, but he's certainly pretty good. And I say, yeah, he's around about where I expected him to be. I probably would have put the Charter Master and Escher Queen, maybe even the Delac Leader above him. But again, the community decides, and this is what we've got. All right, in at number 7, we have a very, very, very tasty candidate here, and that is the Corpse Grinder Butcher. Again, I thought he might be a little bit higher, but I think Corpse Grinders as a gang would be very high in the sort of overall tier listing of things. But the leader by himself, his stats aren't particularly amazing. He is very, very scary, don't get me wrong, but he's not absolutely horrific like some of the other leaders in the game, but he is definitely right up there. So we have 130 credits for the Butcher. He's movement 5, weapon skill 2+, ballistic skill 4+, but you're never going to be shooting with him because you just can't shoot with him. He's strength and toughness 4, so he's got fantastic stats there. Wounds 2, initiative 4+, and attacks 2. Leadership 5+, cool 5+, willpower 5+, and an average intelligence of 7+ here as well. He has got some special rules which make him pretty good, as well as the Butcher's Mask and plate armor. So he's effectively terrifying with plate mail armor there as well, built into the cost for 130 credits. Pretty damn good. He's also got the special unique rule to him, which is first to the fray. So when he makes a charge double action, instead of rolling a d3, you get to roll a d6. So you can really get in there. Skill access here, we get Brawn, Combat, and Leadership as primaries here. It's worth noting that you don't get Savagery skills on a primary on these guys. That is a secondary, as well as Ferocity. So you can't just give him Nerves of Steel or any of the Savagery skills. He also gets Savant as a secondary as well, which is an interesting choice there. So Brawn, Combat, and Leadership there is an interesting choice, and I think it stops him from being absolutely top tier, because I think most people are going to give him Nerves of Steel. Combine Nerves of Steel with the the mask, and he becomes absolutely horrific. So it's good that you can't do that, because I think he'd just be a little bit hard to manage otherwise. In terms of the close combat weapons here, which is what you're going to go for, we've got Boning Swords, Butcher's Chain Cleavers, Butcher's Cleavers, Chain Glaives, Fighting Knife, Flinching Knife, Heavy Chain Cleaver, Heavy Rock Cutter, Paired Butcher's Chain Cleavers, Paired Heavy Chain Cleavers, which is pretty much the option I'm always taking on this guy, just to boost his attacks value and the amount of damage that he dishes out. Rotary Flensing Saw, which is another really fun and unique weapon, and a two-handed axe, which you're just never going to take. He can have grenades, but gets no access to any other pistols, special weapons, or basic weapons. So there's no shooting that this guy can do outside of grenades. Really, though, you're never going to give this guy grenades either, because your initiates are the ones that are going to be dishing out the grenades. We do get the Armoured Undersuit, which is excellent to add to his already good armour, as well as photo goggles, skin blades, and stim slug stash as well, which is another good one to give him. And we've got some additional rules here from Apocrypha Necromunda Sump City Sinking. You can choose to use these if your arbitrator's cool with them, but we've got this Invoke Dark Gods special rule. I won't go into that in too much detail, because that really does depend on whether you're going to use it or not, but go check it out on the Warhammer community, the Apocrypha Necromunda. That is Sump City Sinking. Some extra rules for corpse grinders there. Nothing that makes them even more broken than they already are. But as you can see, really good stat line. 130 credits for a fighter that is very, very, very effective in close combat. Paired Heavy Chain Cleavers giving you, 6 attacks at damage 2 with awful stuff just happening. This guy is a real threat. You can't shoot him easily. It's always a willpower check to shoot him because of that Corpse Grinder mask. He's got decent armor, a strength and toughness of 4. He's a very tricky customer and honestly, definitely one of the best leaders in the game. Is he in the right position though at number 7? Would you put him a little bit higher? I'm not so sure. I think that's probably about right. But again, I'd like to know what you think here. I think a lot of people might look at the Butcher and go, yep, he's absolutely right up there at the top. But he just hasn't got the options. He can't do any shooting. He's very one-dimensional. He's only really a fighter. And again, if you set him on fire and you use templates on him all the time, then he's useless. He's just on the ground. If you manage to pin him with las guns and pass those willpower checks, then again, he's not very effective. So he doesn't have options. He really only has that one direct route, and that is getting in your face and absolutely punching the living death out of you. That's what he does. That's what he's there for. So he is a one-dimensional leader. And as a result, I think he's probably in about the right position. Okay, in at number 6 here with 31 votes, we have the Outcast leader. Now, as I highlighted at the beginning of this video, we are just looking at the generic fighter profiles for the Outcast leader. I'm well aware that you can use any fighter profile in the game, and that does change things a lot, especially if you're going to use, I don't know, Yagaloth or something like that as your leader. But we're not doing that here. We're just looking at the base 125 credit Outcast leader. And there are 4 profiles to choose from here. So the first profile is movement 7, which is incredibly fast, the fastest leader in the game. Weapon skill 4+, and ballistic skill 2+, so definitely a fast shooty guy here. Strength 3, toughness 3, wounds 2, initiative 3+, attacks 2, and the mental stats of leadership 5+, cool 4+, willpower 7+, and intelligence 5+. So an interesting one there. If you want to go with a really shooty Outcast leader, you certainly can do. That's the one to go for. I love the movement 7, by the way. It's fantastic. Really nice profile there. Pretty damn good overall. We then have the second fastest, which is movement 6. Again, pretty fast, same as the Nomad leader here. Slightly better weapon skill of 3+, and a ballistic skill slightly worse with 3+. Strength, toughness 3, wounds 2, initiative 3+, and attacks 3. So kind of similar to an Escher leader there, a little bit faster, slightly lower initiative, but the same amount of attacks with 3. We have a leadership of 6+, cool of 7+, which is not great for a leader, 6+ willpower, and intelligence of 4+. So that's a really interesting profile there. Both of those profiles very good so far, and actually better than most of the other gang leaders so far. The third profile here is the movement 5, weapon skill 2+, close combat profile, 4+ ballistic skill, strength 4, toughness 3, wounds 2, initiative 4+, and also 3 attacks with a 6+ leadership, 6+ cool, 4+ willpower, and 7+ on the intelligence there as well. That is probably the one you're going to use if you want to go Psyker route, because even though it's close combat based in its sort of profile with that strength 4 and 3 attacks, it has the highest willpower at 4+, which is just excellent for a Psyker. The last one is movement 4, weapon skill 3+, ballistic skill 4+, strength 3, toughness 4, wounds 3, initiative 5+, attacks 2, 6+ leadership, cool 4+, 6+ willpower, and intelligence 5+ as well. So almost similar to a squat profile Charter Master there. With the high toughness and high wounds, it's pretty much the same as a Charter Master, but slightly worse on the mental stats there as well. So really interesting. You've got 4 profiles to choose from here, and it gets even more interesting when you then go on to the archetypes. Now with Outcast, you've got 5 different archetypes to choose from, and you pick one of these after you've picked the fighter profile to be your skill access, and they are as follows. So the Brawler, I'm only going to talk about primary access here. Brawler archetype gets Brawn as a primary, Ferocity as a primary, and Leadership as a primary, so pretty good there. Gunslinger, we get Agility as a primary with Shooting and Leadership as a primary there as well. We've got Survivor, who has Combat and Ferocity and Leadership as a primary. We've got Mastermind, who has Cunning, Leadership, and Savant. And we've also got the Weird as well, who gets Leadership and Weird powers as primary there too. So lots of choices there, and of course the one that I kind of want to highlight really is the weird power thing. So adding a weird to this list, and you've got some really good access to some excellent weird powers that you can use with your Underhive Outcast leader, particularly with that willpower 4+ stat line that I probably would go with, to be honest. In terms of the war gear and equipment that you can get on the Outcast leader, you can basically get anything from the trading post at rarity 9 or less. Now that's not particularly high when you compare it to the Venator leader that we're going to talk about in a minute, who gets much better access to stuff, but the Outcasts are not as elite as Venators. They are a different type of gang. They're a little bit more hoardy generally, and they get access to 9 or below. So you can get some really cool stuff for 9 or below, but nothing particularly amazing. But again, that's most of the stuff that you're going to need as an Outcast leader. You've got loads and loads of options to choose from there. So I think all in all, having more options for stuff in general makes this leader already very good. Having access to be able to choose which sort of archetype you want, which skills you really want to utilize, and of course using those fighter profiles that are all actually very good individually is really, really good. So I think this Outcast leader is definitely in the right place here. Where are we? Number 6, I think, with 31 votes. It's pretty good. I'd say that's probably about right so far for the Outcast leader. But again, let me know what you think. I think most people, though, like me, if you're going to be playing Outcasts, you're probably not going to go with this a lot of the time. You're probably going to go with one of the Dramatis Personae because you really can get some incredibly fun ones in there. Cal Jericho comes to mind, the Ashwood Stranger, Yagaloth, like I mentioned before. You can get some really fun and interesting gang leaders in there that have got some unique rules that you can use to make your games of Necromunda more fun. And that is why Outcasts are basically the best gang in the game, I think. So in a similar vein here, and with the same amount of votes actually, which is interesting, 31 votes here, in at number 5, we have the Venator Hunt Leader. Very similar to the Outcast leader, slightly different on the stats and the rules and stuff, but very similar way that you do this. You have 4 different fighter profiles to choose from for 110 credits, and they are as follows. The first one is Movement 5, Weapon Skill and Ballistic Skill 3+, Strength Toughness 3, Wounds 2, Initiative 3+, Attacks 2, Leadership 7+, Cool 6+, Willpower 6+, and Intelligence 6+. So pretty good stat line, but nothing too amazing. It kind of reminds me of the Delac leader a little bit, to be honest there. The second one, and I think needs updating a little bit, is Movement 3. So this is kind of what Squats were before Squat Prospectors actually came out as a gang. Squats before that, all of the Dramatis Personae, any squat in the game so far had Movement 3. This one has Movement 3, Weapon Skill 3+, Ballistic Skill 4+, Strength 3, Toughness 4, and 2 wounds. So no 3 wounds like the Charter Master there. Initiative 5+, 2 attacks, 6+ on Leadership, Cool, 5+ on Willpower and Intelligence. So that's your kind of squat profile there. Honestly, Movement 3 is so terrible, I just would never recommend taking that. We then have Movement 4, Weapon Skill 3+, Ballistic Skill 5+. So this is the slightly more punchy close combat fighter here with Strength and Toughness 4, which is fantastic. 2 wounds, Initiative 4 up, and 2 attacks here as well, with the mental stats being 7+ Leadership, 5+ Cool, 8+ Willpower, and a 9+ Intelligence, which is really bad for a leader. But again, you're punching stuff. You don't need to be smart about it. The last fighter profile is the shooty sort of Vansar long range type here, and this is quite the opposite of the last one. Same movement though with Movement 4. We've got 4+ Weapon Skill and a 2+ Ballistic Skill. So similar to your Vanar Prime here. Strength 3, Toughness 3, Wounds 2, Initiative 3 up, which is better than a Vanar Prime, that's for sure. Attacks 1 though, with 5+ Leadership, 5+ Cool, 6+ Willpower, and 5+ Intelligence. So the best mental stats of the bunch there as well. So those are your 4 different hunt leaders. You'll notice that really the hunt leader profiles aren't as good as the generic Outcast leader profiles. They are better, generally speaking. But you get some special rules and access to better stuff here as well. Note, you can actually change the leader here. For 35 credits, you can change them to an unsanctioned or sanctioned Psyker, which is pretty good there as well, giving you access to all of those juicy, lovely psychic powers. And I mean, one of them's got the second profile's got a 5+ willpower. The other 2 have 6+ willpower. So you can definitely make a good Psyker build out of your Venator leader as well. I've done this with a sort of inquisitorial retinue, and the leader was an Inquisitor with psychic powers there. Really cool. Similar to your Outcast leader here, we have the trading post access in terms of the equipment and stuff that you can get. Instead of a 9 and under, we have an 11 under, which means that you've got much more cool shit that you can use, and it just makes the Venator even more interesting. So even though the sort of fighter profile's not quite as good, you can still make it a Psyker, and you can still get some really, really good equipment on this guy. Some really rare stuff at 11 and under makes your options just almost limitless, really. The other thing that's really cool about Venators, instead of archetypes, you can just flatly choose which of the generic skill categories you use as your primary and secondary skills. So you can choose your primaries, you can choose your secondaries, and just pick whatever you want. So that's really, really good and really powerful and really customizable as well, which is what I love about Necromunda. The other thing you can do with hunt leaders and Venators in general is give them a house legacy. What this means is for 30 credits, you can make them a House Cordor, House Delac sort of background. What that means is they get access to all of the stuff that house gets. So that house list is then available for you, including pets and exotic beasts, by the way. So you can do that. For 30 credits, sometimes it's worth it. Yeah, another option there for you for your Venator leader. Overall, the Venator hunt leader is basically a more elite version of the Outcast leader. They're very, very similar in the way that you do them, and they give you lots and lots of options in terms of customizing and creating your own gang with its own narrative and fluff. And I think that's why these are so high up the list, because people really like the element of Necromunda where you can just create your own story and create your own narrative. That's why I love Venators and Outcasts. I think are my two sort of favorite gangs overall, because you can just do pretty much anything with them. So really, really fantastic option there with lots of really cool stuff to choose from. Yes, the fighter profiles aren't quite as good as the Outcast profiles, but the fact that you can get slightly rarer stuff just makes them a bit more interesting, I think. And certainly more elite as well, and the gang is generally more expensive as a result of this. Into the top 4 now, and certainly an absolute fan favourite here is the Ogryn Overboss with 36 votes. We're getting into the big numbers here. 36 votes for the Ogryn Overboss, and he is absolutely horrifically powerful. Here's what you get with the Ogryn Overboss. He's definitely the best thing about the Ogryn gang in general. He's 145 credits, which is not that expensive for what he does, and his stats are as follows. He's movement 5, so he's no slouch. He's weapon skill 3+, and ballistic skill 5+. Strength 5, toughness 5, and 3 wounds. So he hits like an absolute truck. He's very, very hard to remove as well with 3 wounds and toughness 5. Initiative 3+, so he's certainly fairly agile for a big guy, and attacks 3 as well. So just excellent stats all round. Obviously, he could be better at shooting, but you're not really going to be using these guys for shooting. They're just good at punching face. For the mental stats here, we've got leadership 8+, cool of 5+, willpower of 9+, which is the absolute, not what you want against corpse grinders generally, and intelligence 8+ there as well. So you're not getting these guys for the mental stats, but it's worth noting that the cool is excellent there. Similar sort of special rules around gang leader activations and stuff, except he's, he's +1 instead of +2 in terms of his group activations and whatnot. He's also, if you sell him to the guilders, I believe, should a fighter with this special rule ever be taken captive, the gang that sells them is awarded an extra D6 times 10 credits as well. Heaven forbid that happens to your poor Ogryn gang leader. You also get skill access as follows as well. So brawn as a primary, of course, leadership as a primary, and the muscle skills there as well, which are quite fun too. In terms of weapons, we get augmetic weapons, which must be taken right at the beginning. You can't remove them either. We get augmetic fists, arc welders, heavy rock cutter, heavy rock saw, las cutter, paired augmetic fists, and storm welders. Pretty good. Hand weapons, we get axes, brute cleavers, mauls, spudjackers, two-handed axes, and two-handed hammers there as well. Personally, I love the paired augmetic fists on this guy. We then get blasting charges, demo charges, frag grenades, incendiary, and crack, with light carapace and furnace plates as the armor options there as well. So yeah, not many options in terms of the equipment and war gear. I mean, honestly, just having this guy with paired augmetic fists just running around punching stuff with a whopping amount of attacks. What's that on the charge? 8 attacks on the charge, I believe. You could give him lots of armor, like carapace armor and stuff, but the real shame of it is this guy's very pinnable. So, he doesn't get access to nerves of steel or anything. So again, a big lumbering brute is quite easily pinnable under las fire, or even, flamers. Heaven forbid he gets set on fire and stuff. But, the stats alone are pretty much the reason why you're going to want to play Ogryns. They're not the best gang in the game, and they certainly do have some hard counters like corpse grinders and stuff. But for 145 credits, that stat line is just superb, with the strength 5, toughness 5, wounds 3, attacks 3. It's just fantastic, and these guys are really tricky customers most of the time, if they're not pinned, of course. But that's what it is, and that's the Ogryn Overboss. Right then, in at number 3 now, we are at the top 3. Did you guess these correctly? We've got the Spire Hunt Leader in at number 3. Now, I think it is probably a little bit early to say, because Spires are so new into the current version of Necromunda. Not many people have played them in a full campaign, but the Spire Hunt Master, when you look at it on the page, is pretty damn good. And at the moment is in 3rd place here with 38 votes. So 180 credits for the Spire Hunt Master. And these guys, they're fairly expensive, but they're fairly good. The stats are as follows. We have movement 6, so faster than your average bear. We get weapon skill 2+ and ballistic skill 3+. Strength and toughness 3, which is really the only letdown on these guys. Wounds 3 though, which is excellent. Initiative 3+ and 3 attacks, with a leadership of 7+, cool 5+, willpower and intelligence 6+ here as well. We do get the access to skills as follows. We get agility as a secondary, combat as a primary, cunning as a secondary, leadership as a primary, and shooting as a primary. So shooting and combat are your main primaries there, with leadership there too if you really want to take a leadership skill. I can't see why you would on these Spirers generally. The special rules here, we've got quite a lot of them because they're Spirers. So they get to activate twice each turn. They get 2 activation markers instead of 1, meaning that they get to go 4 times pretty much, if that makes sense. It's a lot of words there, but you know what I mean. That in general just makes them very scary, but you're always going to be outnumbered, so there is a flip side to that too. You get all the special rules with your reflex enhancers, masters of the hunt, kill count, and Spira hunting rig glitches instead of injuries there as well, but we won't go into too much detail on that just yet. You've also got the pick a weapon, so you can mix and match weapons from 3 of the different Spira types. So you get the Malkadon, claws and toxin whips, as well as the Yelled Missile Gauntlet and Las Gauntlet, and also the Jakara sword choices and the shield there as well. So it's good to sort of mix it up a little bit. I think a lot of people are taking what's in the picture here, which I believe is the Toxin Whip, as well as one of the Yelled Gauntlets there as well. I'm not sure how I'd go with this one. Personally, in my own Spire hunting party, I've actually taken the leader with the Jakara weapons. So I've taken the Naga Blade and the Mirror Shield. I just think it's better than the Jakara, so I'm not going to take the Jakara. Normally, I can make my leader into a super version of a Jakara, and pretty damn good there as well. All of those weapon choices are pretty great, but you don't get access to the wings, so you can't fly, and you don't get access to any of the Aura stuff either, because that suit is so much bigger and more chonky than the rest. But it is what it is. The Spire Hunt League, I really do wish that Games Workshop gave us the choice to just make one of the generic Spirers into your leader, but you do have a dedicated leader here, so it's definitely worth talking about, and it seems at the moment a very, very popular choice with 38 votes here. Again, I don't want to talk too much about Spirers because we haven't seen that much of them played just yet, but I really would like to know what you think about the Hunt Leader. Where does it fit here? Is it in the right position? Should it be third? Should it be lower? Should it be higher? There's a lot to think about. It's very expensive, but it is very good. And I guess you've got to think of it in the context of your campaigns, how you use your Spirers and stuff, and what you're up against as well, because there's so much to think about with Spirers that it's just, yeah, they're not a beginner gang, that's for sure. All right, in at number 2. Can you guess which one it is? It's the Orlok Road Captain. It has to be. Fantastic. Definitely one of the best leaders in the game. 43 votes for this one. So pretty concise here in at number 2. The Road Captain is fantastic for a number of reasons, and the stats are as follows. We have 105 credits for the Road Captain. He's movement 5, weapon skill 3+, ballistic skill 3+, strength toughness 3, and wounds 3. So a really high, nice wounds characteristic there. Of course, there is an Outcast leader that's also got wounds 3 and better stats. But you've also got the Charter Master as well, which is also wounds 3 and kind of better stats too. Mental stats, though, we have a leadership 4+, cool 5+, willpower 5+, and intelligence 5+. So really good mental stats, initiative 4 and attacks 2. Pretty good stats across the board, but the real highlight there being the mental stats and the wounds, really high with 3 wounds. For 105 credits is pretty good. Same special rules as every other leader gets, and the skill access is as follows. We get Ferocity as a primary, which is excellent. You're going to want to give this guy Nerves of Steel or True Grit generally. Leadership as well, and Savant, which are also excellent too, with Shooting and Bravado and Brawn as secondary skill options there too. So really good access to skills across the board there. The equipment is also excellent. Auto guns, bolt guns, combat shotguns, sawn-off shotguns, and auto pistols, bolt pistols, hand flamers, plasma pistols, and stub guns. Special weapons, we got Combi Bolter Melter, Combi Bolter Grenade Launcher, flamers, grenade launchers, melter guns, plasma guns, and heavy weapons. Quite a few choices here as well, with seismic cannons, mining lasers, heavy stubbers, heavy flamers, heavy bolters, and harpoon launchers. So lots of choice on the DACA there. Close combat weapons, some cool options: chainswords, fighting knives, flails, las cutters, mauls, power knives, power mauls, power picks, servo claws, and two-handed hammers. Never take the two-handed hammer, it's just dreadful. Lots of different grenade options here as well: blasting, demo, frag, crack, melter, flash, scare, and smoke. So tons of grenade options there, and armor here too with mesh, flak, and light carapace armor too. suspensors, telescopic sights, and all of the other personal equipment you'd expect on any leader, really, with bio boosters, drop rigs, and whatnot. And you also get 0 to 3 Cyber Mastiffs, which at 100 credits are a bit too expensive, but they are pretty fun, and everybody likes doggos, right? So the thing that really stands out for the Orlok leader really is lots of DACA, pretty effective, very tough with those 3 wounds, and the ability to give them excellent optimal skills like Nerves of Steel. You can also combine that with your legendary names. Now, legendary names are basically like an extra free skill that you can give to your leaders and champions, and there's some really, really powerful options in there. I can't remember what the name of it was, but like Hard as Nails or something like that, where you basically ignore the first serious injury or out of action in the game. That makes your wounds 3. Your staying power in the game is just ridiculous if you take something like that. There are some other really good options in there too that I can't think about off the top of my head, but I think that really solidifies the Orlok Road Captain as definitely a fan favourite, as you can see here with 43 votes in at number 2. Should it be at number 2? I think there are some other leaders in there that I would say are slightly better, perhaps even the Butcher. But again, I think the options and the versatility of the Orlok Road Captain make it why it's so popular as a choice there. So I think I agree with it overall, though. Road Captain, very, very solid indeed, and overall kind of better than some of the other gang leaders in the house lists anyway. The data is very clear. The community have spoken. The Goliath Forge Tyrant is the best and most popular gang leader in Necromunda to date, and I think I agree with it. 73 votes here, so nearly double the amount of votes as second place. The Goliath Forge Tyrant is an absolute monster in the game of Necromunda, and here's why. The Goliath Forge Tyrant is 135 credits. He has movement 4, weapon skill 3+, ballistic skill 3+, strength and toughness 4 with 2 wounds, initiative 3+, and 3 attacks. Leadership 5+, cool 4+, which is gross, willpower 8+, which is not great against corpse grinders, worth pointing that out, and intelligence 7+. But again, he doesn't have to be too smart. Special rules are exactly the same as everybody else, and he gets access to brawn as a primary, ferocity as a primary, and leadership as a primary there as well. So, I mean, ferocity on this guy, it's always Nerves of Steel, really. It's boring, but you've got to do it. But, I mean, just on the stats there, for 135 credits, just brilliant. You know, excellent toughness and strength there. 3 attacks, initiative 3 up, cooler 4+, and better than average weapon skill and ballistic skill, making him able to mix it up in close combat or at range as well. In terms of access to equipment, we've got bolt guns, combat shotguns, which are notably cheaper here in a Goliath list as well. We've got combi pistols of all sorts, hand flamers and bolt pistols. Combi special weapons here, as well as flamers, grenade launchers, and melter guns. Heavy weapon choices of the Crumper Rivet Cannon, Heavy Stubber, Heavy Flamer, and Heavy Bolter. Missile launcher and multi-melter there as well, if you really want to go there. We've got some really good close combat weapons here as well, with the Chain Axe, notably in this list for 25 credits. Chain Swords, Brute Cleavers, power hammers, power axes, and all of the other stuff there as well. Renderizer too, which is excellent as well. Lots of grenade choice, lots of armor choice, with heavy carapace being an option there too. And we also get 0 to 1 Sump Croc, which is, again, one of the slightly better pets in the game, but doesn't really add anything to your Goliath list generally. So, I mean, just on that, without me talking about what I'm going to talk about in a second, that is probably the best stat line of leader in the game. Really, overall, it's just really, really good, really solid, good at everything. Yeah. Then you have the added sexiness of being able to Gene Smith this guy into next week. Now, that's where it gets really interesting. You can basically adapt his stats, adapt his special rules as much as you like. We're not going to get into the nitty-gritty of why Gene Smithing is good, but it just is. You can make this guy toughness 5 or something like that. You can give him extra wounds. You can just make him far better than he already is, which is, again, just solidifies him as absolutely the number 1 spot here. You know, really good, powerful, close combat and ranged options just make him really, really scary to deal with, unless you're corpse grinders, in which case his willpower is really going to let him down. But again, you can even Gene Smith that to get him to have better willpower if you really want to too, among lots of other things. Again, we're not going to go into the actual full Gene Smithing rules here because it's just too long-winded, but I think most people will agree that the Goliath Forge Tyrant is, in fact, the best and most popular leader in the game, and that's where I'll leave it. So really, I think everybody will pretty much agree that the Goliath Forge Tyrant is the best single best and most popular leader in the game so far. And again, I'd like to know what you think about this. Please do comment down below, like, share, subscribe, and continue getting those algorithms popping off so I can make more of this type of content. I'll be back with another video real soon. Peace out.